Thank you everybody for turning up. We've got a full room today, so thank you very much. It's the Corporate Services and Economic Growth Review and Scrutiny Committee running the 27th of November. So do I have any apologies for absence?
Apologies from Councillor Taylor.
And also Councillor Whitman. Okay, the minutes of the previous meeting have been circulated. Any comments? We're happy to approve record.
Just a brief comment because it's becoming an old chestnut now. I raised it back in June, and of course, you don't have the opportunity of full council to raise it, so I've got to raise it here. We were expecting a report, not the confidentiality, but the report on issues such as British Vote. And there's absolutely no update here at all, but I have to be honest with you. I received last week an email from the Deputy Leader of the Labour Group who got information and shared that with members of the Labour Group. So in other words, the information is there, but it's not going to this scrutiny to look at, and that's a concern.
It is, thanks, Alex. And we had this discussion in the pre-meeting, and I have given instructions that I want to report, even if the report's got one line that says there's nothing to report, but I want a report to come to the next meeting.
Thank you, Chair.
Much the same thing, Chair. I think we were promised to have a report back at this meeting for the sickness and absence. Am I right?
Yes, that's from January.
Right, and I think there was one more.
Chair, if I may, sorry. Sorry, it's just a voice in the ether. It startled you all. Sarah Farrell is preparing a report for the January meeting of the Audit Committee because they have asked for the same report to come to them. I think we probably need to have some further discussion about whether it's appropriate for the same report to be discussed in multiple places. But nevertheless, she is working on a report. So, you know, that is in hand. We haven't forgotten about it.
Thank you. Right, so apart from those comments, we're happy with the minutes? Okay, I'll sign it. Is it which side?
I think I've put them.
Yes, yes. Right, disclosure of members' interests. Anything to disclose on the agenda? No. Okay. Number 4, forward plan of cabinet decisions.
Nothing like Chair. As I said, the usual format. So what you have here is the cabinet decision that has been taken, but also the forward plan of future key decisions.
Yes,
thank you very much. If you don't mind, well, actually, it's on page 15, and it's item B. And I would just like to ask, please, someone, I'm of course aware of that yet, but perhaps the leader of the council could maybe answer this for me. I just want to, if you could make clarification to both councillors and residents of Ashington, the reason for the 600,000 slippage. The report states the reallocation allocated back to 24-25. Will the slippage have an impact on external funding, timelines or completions? That's question 1, please, if you don't mind.
So the answer to that, as far as I'm concerned, is no. Simon is here. He is the executive director who takes Regen under his wing. I think I'm right in saying that. Am I not, Simon?
That's correct. If I may, Chair, yes. It's just capital profiling. So the year in which the money would be spent. It will go into 24-25, and there's no slippage on timelines or delivery of external funding. No.
Could I also please be indulgent in the reason for, you know, the slippage, and also are we the only people in Ashington that's suffering with slippage? Because I noticed at the cabinet there was nothing mentioned about any other town or village, parish about slippage with any of their about a relocation of their money either. So I just wondered if it was only Ashington or can you tell me if there's other places that's suffering too with slippage, please?
If I just take that first, and then Simon can correct me if I'm wrong. I understand there are a number of capital projects where cost inflation has had a bearing. And we have got to make sure we get full value for money. So if that means that suddenly a quote comes in for 10 million when it should be 2 million, we will say, well, we'll need to just start and look at this in more detail. Ashington is not on its own. There are other projects where we are seeing slippage for that same reason. Recently, we asked that the regen team increase the amount of resources that they have, increase the amount of officers and staff that are working for them, so that we can crack on as quickly as we can with all of the projects that we need to deliver. I'm hoping, and I'd be very surprised if we actually lose much, if any, time on most of the capital projects. Simon?
Thank you. And just on that last point, we've just selected, 2 extra people to join that team in the last week. So that is promising news. Just on it was simply a matter of accounting. So we had the money in the current financial year for spend. There was no requirement for spend in the current financial year. Therefore, we've swapped some money to spend on projects this year and put it back into next year. So it's just a phasing of spend. There's no detriment to Ashington projects. And if I may just to remind, I think all Ashington members have been invited to a briefing on Ashington regeneration next week. So just to bring that to everyone's attention.
Thank you very much. And if I may, if you don't mind, Chair. Would it be possible then, Leader, if we could have a report back in January as to the other towns and villages that perhaps will have spillage too? Because I suppose they will be as interested as we are, because it was like a whole out of blue come on the cabinet meeting to see that Ashington was the only one on the agenda for this slippage. And, you know, it's been 8 years, Leader, start of the project, and Ashton people, residents, feel sort of now with reading this in layman's terms, so I understand, and as members around here understands, yes, slippage, etc., and the reasons why. But unfortunately, with just being placed in a paragraph on a cabinet meeting, it didn't explain very in detail to the residents.
So just to give you some reassurance, we are getting an update on the capital programme next meeting. It's next meeting.
I think that's
Yes. It's during the next meeting, so that'll be the capital programme as a whole, which will have all the projects and all any potential slippages and changes.
So the idea of the briefing for Ashington members is to see where we are, where we've been, and where we're going to. Timescales, slippage, everything. So you're fully in touch with what's happening.
Thank you. But, you know, I'm terribly sorry to be again, but, you know, a paragraph, I think if you had gone into a little bit more detail, the residents wouldn't have been phoning all of the members of Ashington to get them chewed up and thinking, oh, here's a way again, yeah, Ashington bottom of the list. Forgetting about 8 years on and there's still very little happening. And I know you'll probably say to me, the railway, but that was in grip 3 with our administration, and I know you want to come back. Yes, well, totally understandable, but because we would have been the same. But may I just add that there would have a lot of things would have happened in Ashington had you know ahead with the original project, and we're still waiting for the cinema 8 years on too. Yes. So you can understand the frustration, Ashton. And I would like to invite you to come to speak to the residents at our LAC as well, if you would indulge us, you know.
More than happy to do that, Mr. Chairman.
Parents, I'll be very happy to see you there.
I'd be more than happy to do that, to explain where we are, as I say, where we've been, where we're going to. But I know that the member will share my enthusiasm and my great relief that Ashington is actually getting funding for the first time of this size ever under a Conservative administration. But, you know, I won't become political at all. I'll leave it at that. But I know she shares my enthusiasm.
I think you can have that conversation at the LAC.
Indeed.
Enjoy it.
Thank you very much, Chair, for your indulgence.
Right, so next item, I'm going to swap item 6 and item 5 because item 5 is about the engagement on the budget. Item 6 is about the budget. I think relatively well members might stray into the budget or the engagement. So we'll do item 6. So that's the budget medium-term financial plan. Do you want to say anything about this?
Yes, he does, if that's okay. So if I do an introduction, then I know that Dan Willis might want to add something in terms of detail. And if there are any difficult questions, then certainly should be taken note of. So there are two papers, as you say, Chairman, going to you this morning. This will be going to Cabinet in a fortnight's time. One is around the consultation, and we have quite a lot to talk about on that one. And secondly, on where we've got to so far on the budget. Now, this is not the final version at all, for a number of reasons, not least that we don't know yet what government funding will actually be definitely available. And we probably won't know that till probably another 3 or 4 weeks. So we don't know that. So we can't be absolutely, this won't be the final version. This is a draft to give you an indication of where we've got to at the moment. So that's one thing that we are still waiting for. We know that there is an increase in need across a range of services within the county council. For example, adult social care, and we know about the issues around care workers and the range of conundrums that we have to deal with on that. We know that the increase in funding for our SEND pupils, although we've built a new school in Blythe, there is still an increasing proportion of our budget going on dealing with the pressures around SEND pupils. And silly things in a way, like Storm Babette, and the damage that caused in terms of road slips and damage to roads and landslips will cost us in a region of £2.5 million this year. So these are some of the pressures, not all, but some of the pressures. So that's why when we tackled our initial look at the budget, we concentrated on what we have always concentrated in this administration, which are the 3 key priorities, which you know to provide value for money, to tackle inequalities, and to positively boost jobs, investment, and skills. And so that's why the budget, as you see it at the moment, will show no service cuts. Will show no service cuts in those areas. Similarly, you will see that, for example, in education, there will be no service cuts. And I'm very proud and I'm very grateful to the officer this year this morning around education, because we know that in 2017, for example, we were in the lower quartile of Ofsted results. Today, we are in the upper quartile. And in fact, there are some splendid figures that show us to be actually joint equal, I think it is, in terms of Ofsted within of the North East region, which is something to be incredibly proud of, and to say thanks to everybody involved, teachers, students, and the team here, schools improvement team, and so on. So no service cuts are shown here. There will be, secondly, unless there is absolute need for it, it is still my wish there will be no compulsory redundancies. There will be a continued capital programme, which is not yet complete because we're still working on that, but we will still be pressing ahead with our schools building programme, which is a multi-million-pound schools investment programme. We will be pressing ahead with our regeneration projects across the county. The big key ones you all know about, but smaller investments in towns like Berwick, Hexham, Bedlington, Prudhoe will continue, and they will definitely be seen to over the next 12 to 18 months in terms of delivery of new money in those towns. So they will continue to be of importance to us when it comes to spending. And I suppose the final point I'd want to make, Mr. Chairman, is that underlying all of this is the need for us to continue to be sure that the services that we are providing are done in the most efficient way, and that we can be clear that we are sure that we have efficiency and we have the necessary skills that line up to provide the services in the best possible way we can. So that is why we have the BEST programme, which you remember I talked about 18 months ago now. And that will provide not just savings, but efficiencies as well, so that we can be clear that the services that we deliver are done in the best and most efficient way possible. I hope that's been a useful introduction. The basic thoughts around it, and I'm happy to take any questions if they're easy. If they're difficult, Jan's here.
So Jan, are you looking to add before we get the question? Voice.
No, I'll be happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Right, members, do we have any questions on this board? Alex?
Yes, Chair. At the end of the day, whether you call them cuts or whether you call them savings, efficiencies, we all know they have to be done. So I'm speaking on behalf of our trusted partners who aren't here, the town and parish councils, who spend some £10 million a year, not looking at inequalities, not looking at protecting jobs, but enhancing local services, or delivering the services that they think we aren't delivering. It's a very simple question after a lot of prologue. Can they expect to be asked to do more this coming year? Or are the budgets they've been sitting talking about since September on the mark?
So at the moment, the answer is that we are planning to talk to parish and town councils about what they may be able, if they wish to have in terms of enhanced services. We're not at that stage yet, though, to be able to answer your question. So rather than give you a
fair answer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Liz?
Yes, thanks. Can I just ask, Glenn, I mean, in the past, we've had an all scrutiny meeting sort of the day before the budget actually goes to cabinet. Are we planning, can we possibly have something earlier on so that input that people have, any input people have, is more meaningful? It goes earlier.
Yeah, so the answer is that we are, the next main meeting will be on the 29th of January, where corporate services, economic growth, plus all members, all scrutiny members, and I don't care if every member wants to come, that's fine. The more the better the debate. So that's the next one. And by then we will know what the government settlement is. We will finalise what our proposed capital programme is, and that will be the crunch time for you to say, you know, to have an influence on this. Now, the only other thing I would say, if I may, and forgive me for kind of messing around with your agenda, but actually the consultation on the budget is actually very important for members as well. So Phil here, he can give you more details about what that looks like, but it's very important that all members get a questionnaire, for want of a better word, that lists some of the key things that we're going to be doing, some of the key things that we could do to save a bit of money, but we don't think we should, and a list of questions about do you agree with this or not, so that every member, as I said at the budget meeting last year, will be asked about what they think the priorities for the council should be, and if, for example, you think we should stop Linemouth beach clear, for example, we could save a bit of money that way. We could certainly save, 2 or 3 million by stopping it now, but we're not going to do that. So that's the kind of question, and so all members will have that opportunity. Phil, sorry, may I just move on to that quickly then?
Well, we are going to come to that next on the agenda.
Do you want to deal with that next in the agenda?
We'll deal with that when it comes. We'll see if there's any more questions on this item first. Michael?
I've got several, mainly for Jan, I think. Page 45, 5.12, and I certainly don't envy you putting the budget together based on assumptions, but I want to ask when the assumptions will become real-time figures. What sort of date will we have in mind where we can be sure that the likes of the grant will be known and other things?
So there will be a number of different dates. In December, we will have the provisional local government finance settlement for 24/5. We don't yet know whether there will be any detail about 25/6 in the settlement. We are at the end of a comprehensive spending review period. 25/6 is the last year. So what happens beyond that, I think, is anybody's guess at this time, which is why we're concentrating on the next 2 years where we do have a degree of certainty. So that's the first thing. What often happens then is that we get the provisional local government finance settlement just before Christmas, and the detail of all the specific grants follows in January. So it's usually drip fed through the first few weeks of January. So it probably won't be until the end of January that we've got a complete view of all of that. As we've already mentioned, there is a lot of work which is currently going on the capital programme to agree accurate spend profiles, and that will then allow us to calculate a more accurate figure for the revenue cost of the capital programme. And then there is some uncertainty about issues such as whether the regulations will be laid in time for the, i.e. by the end of this financial year. They have to be agreed by Parliament by the end of this financial year around second homes premium to allow us to introduce that change in time for 25/6. So there's, and also we're still waiting to see whether the regulations are laid in time to allow an increase in planning fee income. So there are lots of things that need to happen between now and the budget setting council meeting in February, and I think they will all be drip fed over the next couple of months. But the hope is that by the end of January, we will have sufficient clarity about some, if not all, of those matters to be able to finalise the budget proposals. And that's what we'll be looking to bring to this meeting on 29th of January.
Okay, thanks so much, Jan. Malcolm?
Couple more questions.
Yeah.
If I'm here. Next page, John. On expenditure, revenue, cost of capital. 27, 28, there seems to be a significant decrease in that cost. Can you explain why?
That is because we, I think I'll just confirm this with Alison. We're looking to make a voluntary minimum revenue provision contribution, which then drops out the following year. But the underlying cost of capital is upwards, and that is a concern. Because particularly with interest rates being at the level that they currently are, the cost of servicing the capital programme is consuming an increasing proportion of our revenue headroom. So, capital programme is something that I know that this committee have said that they want to look at. And we're doing a lot of detailed work on that for that very reason, because it does have a really significant impact. Every £1 million at current interest rates that we spend on capital, on new capital, is costing us £88,000 of revenue. So you can see how very quickly you end up with a significant revenue pressure if you're continually adding to the capital programme. And as we've noted here before, we do have a large capital programme. That's partly because we have a lot of external funding for big regeneration projects, the Northumberland line, some of the big road projects, the Borderlands project or programme, levelling up, town deals, etc. So we do have a large capital programme for that reason, but the key issue, I think, for us is whether our underlying capital expenditure is sustainable in the long term. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to start chopping huge parts out of the capital programme, but with all of the other pressures on our revenue budget, I think we do need to have a sensible discussion about how much we can afford to keep investing via our capital programme in the medium to long term.
Thank you. My next question is about the council tax base. The council has assumed that losses on collection will continue at 1%. Does that mean we have a 99% collection rate?
The eventual collection rate, yes. We have one of the highest final collection rates in the country. So we have an in-year collection rate, which is agreed as part of the budget setting, and then we have a final collection rate because often, you know, we're collecting revenues over the long term. I should say this is after you know, we do set aside significant amounts of money for non-collection on the business rate side in particular, and all of that gets wrapped up in the collection fund. But yes, we look to collect 99% in the long run.
Right there. My next question is about page 51, 514 capital. And given what you said about the programme and whatnot, are any projects sacrosanct, or will you be running the slide rule over all of them?
Shall I just?
Leader wants to answer this one. Yeah.
So the answer to that one is, Jan, sorry to just barge in. I think if we've made it clear that we're going to deliver on our capital programme, and the figures still stack up so that it's affordable, then we will continue. To continue to invest.
That's great.
My last question then.
I mean, Jan, do you want to come in and say?
I'll let you win with that one, Graham, but my last question is, for you probably, the council has a statutory duty to consult with business in Northumberland. How do we do that?
Okay, so we
because I was in business for 25 years and I never had a consultation.
Right, so we do it in a different way. We at the moment are preparing the questionnaire, and that will go online, and there is also going to be a question and answer with me online. And there will also be a number, well, we've already discussed with some of the parish and town councils already, I think, Phil. And we have a meeting with business on Thursday, I think it is. So it will give this year, people will have probably the largest say in any budget in any council in the country, I would have thought. Am I exaggerating, Phil?
I think we're straying on to the next item again. So
can I just make, because small businesses, micro business in Northumberland are the mainstay of this county. Can you make a special effort to get in touch with the smaller ones? It's easy to get the big boys in because they'll come in for a cup of coffee and a piece of cake, but the little guys need to take time off their business to make the meetings and that.
Yeah, so we do meet with the Federation of Small Business representative, who is an extremely able person and with whom we have a very good relationship. And she was at our meeting last year and she was at the meeting the year before, and she's involved, I think, again on Thursday. So it is important. I mean, one of the key things coming out of the autumn statement, of course, is a relaxation in business rates for small business, which will be really important. And I've always made myself available to speak to anyone about anything to do with the council. And I do get in touch with people and they get in touch with me around how they're finding it to run businesses in Edmonton, for example. So that's very much part of the scheme, isn't it?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make a note and a query. I mean, this is related to Alex's questions and the leader's answer and also consultation. Do these consultations include whether we are getting value for money for the investment?
Well, I'll stop there because we're going back into the consultation. Before we go on to that item, is there anything not consultation based that anyone wants to ask? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Page 53, Jan, the human resources and the implications. I mean, it acknowledges that the size of the financial challenge could have an impact on staffing levels across the council. And I know the leader has given us some assurance already there about, you know, it'll be steering clear of compulsory redundancies. I'm just wondering, the recent announcement that the living wage was being increased, welcome as it is, how does that affect our figures here for this council?
Can I just begin and then Jan or Alison will take over? What I said about compulsory redundancies is the same as I said last year, which is if we can possibly avoid it, there will be no compulsory redundancies. I can't rule it out, but it's definitely one of our key priorities that we are proud and very supportive of the team we've got. I think they do a very good job. And I don't want to see anybody lose their job compulsorily if we can avoid it. That still remains absolutely the case for me. I think when we're talking about savings here, we're talking about potentially ensuring that the services, when we do our best review and so on, are as streamlined as they can be. And in terms of the national living wage, I believe I'm right in saying that this will potentially affect some care workers, but not necessarily any of the other staff that work for the council. Am I right or wrong with that? You, perhaps.
There's that part of
Are
it.
you still in Thailand?
Slightly jet lagged still.
No, the question is around national living wage. My understanding is that the national living wage clicks in for our care workers, and we've already paid above. We've already paid them more, but across the services of the council as a whole, the national living wage does not really feature. Am I right?
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
The bottom point on the NJC grades is more than what the national living wage will be.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Claire, call now. So just to come in on the adult side, we actually, for the majority of care workers, we match the real living wage already, which goes beyond the national living wage. And we have already with Jan and Alan accounted for enough in the budget via government grant and the inflation that we'd already built into this budget to be able to continue to match the real living wage at least into next year. Although we don't know how far that's going to accelerate beyond next year, it may be difficult to continue that match in the future years beyond it. So we're going above and beyond the minimums. I think what happened while I was away on holiday over the last 2 weeks, though, is we now have an indication of what the national minimum wage will be, and that's higher than was expected originally for budgeting purposes. So I know my team have been working with some of Alison's team while I've been away to just see how we can actually manage that situation, because all the other external contracts that we have will be affected by that change. Internally for us, it shouldn't really affect council staff though, because we already pay beyond the national living wage for council staff themselves. I hope that made sense. It's slightly complicated, isn't it? That's a position.
And then Scott.
Yes, please, you don't mind, Leader. You say you're going to try to avoid compulsory redundancies. Is this on top of the efficiencies / cuts / services cuts that you're going to be doing? Because, you know, I know things have got decisions got to be made, but you know, yeah, our efficiencies, there's not a lot of posts being filled. Now, you know, it's bound to have an impact on the services, whichever we try to, you know, fluff it over. And then what you're saying now, that there could be, and not rolling it out, but you hope you're rolling it out. So is this on top of your efficiencies as well? Because that worries me now, Glenn, because of the services and the impact it could have on the people that we represent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So for this coming year, it is still absolutely my hope and intention and strong political steer giving to our staff. I don't want to see any compulsory redundancies. Now, I can't talk about long-term future. You wouldn't expect me to, because I don't know what the situation will be next year. But the same view will be held by me, which is that I don't want people to be made compulsorily redundant. Full stop. I can't rule it out, but as long as I'm leader, that will be very much my view.
Thank you.
Chair, may I just come in? And there is a report on BEST a bit later on your agenda. So can I suggest that we return to that question then, because the vast majority of the efficiencies that are underpinning the budget proposals will be delivered through BEST. So I think we'll have an opportunity to unpack, you know, what that looks like and the staffing implications when we get to that item, if that's okay, Councillor Grimshaw.
It's absolutely fine. Thank you, Chair.
Yep, good point.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's just following on from what Councillor Grimshaw says. If my memory is right, at the last meeting, Sarah Farrell identified that retention was a difficulty, recruitment was a difficulty. My difficulty is her report's going to come back when it's determined that it should come back, into which committee it should come first, rather than some get it and some don't get it. And then we're having a budget meeting. I'm on planning. I love planning. I do. 70% of workforce, the 30% understaffed. No, that's a figure produced by this council. We hear constantly lack of enforcement on planning conditions. We see homes or planning permission that aren't being built. We see in Cronington housing estates that roads aren't being built and constructed 2.5 years after people have lived on that housing estate. Is that a planning problem? I don't know. But Joe Public out there says it's planning. I heard, I hope, the Chancellor say in the budget, the planning fees, because that's what's caused the problem this year. The Conservative government promised those planning fees would be determined, and our budget was set on those planning fees being able to be charged. The Chancellor said in the autumn statement, if I heard him correctly, and by the way, don't forget, in Bedlett, we don't always hear everything correctly, or at least we're told that at public meetings. The reality is, he said that authorities will be able to charge developers what the real costs are. And that will make a massive difference if that comes through. So I hope it does, Jan. It'll make your job easier, and it'll certainly make Rob Murphy and all those who work for him admirably a lot easier too, Jay. So that there isn't really a question. It's just a bit of a comment that I'm concerned that that report coming back from Sarah Farrell might be best to be sooner rather than later for retention and being able to recruit.
Okay, that's noted. That's.
Jed, would you like me to just respond on that?
Yeah, yes, Jan, yeah.
So, so as far as I'm concerned, there is currently no link between the assumptions we make around income levels and staffing levels. So the anticipated increase in planning fees did not materialise this year, as we expected when we set the budget last year, and that has created a budget pressure, which we are having to deal with now. But it has had no impact on our recruitment activity and planning, so even if we do get that additional planning income, I don't think it will make a significant difference in that area. Clearly, we are experiencing recruitment difficulties, and you know the tightness of the labour market is something which is impacting on all councils and indeed on all employers. And it's one of the things, you know, that the tightness in the labour market is one of the things that has been driving, you know, significant pay increase and competition between employers for staff. That issue is not going to go away anytime soon. It is easing, and we're starting to find that you know, we are losing fewer staff, or at least you know the trend has started to slow down, and that we are finding it easier to recruit staff. But in common with all employers, you know, we're having to deal with the realities of the post-COVID labour market, where we still have significant numbers of people who have exited the labour market and are not coming back, as well as a number of other factors. So I don't think any of that's going to go away, you know, but we are not deliberately holding posts vacant, other than where we know that we are planning to make changes to the way that we deliver the services, in which case we are looking at other alternative options to permanent recruitment, because the last thing we want to do is to recruit people on a permanent basis and then say that the requirement has changed significantly in 6 months or 12 months time. So it's all about having a planned and sensible approach to managing change, and it's about how all of that sort of intersects. You know, so Sarah will be bringing a report in January with the latest information for you. But I just want to reassure you that, you know, if we have vacancies in the planning team, it's not because you know the national planning fee increases haven't yet been approved. Hope that helps.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Jan. I know we touched about this in the pre-meet, Jan, but on page 50, the only item that actually states as a reduction in services is it's 13,000, I believe. Can you just clarify what that is?
Yeah, so this is the full year impact of a savings proposal that was agreed last year. I think it's in the arts, culture and heritage portfolio. So we're looking at that. It's a very small amount of money. So we'll have a look at whether that can be delivered in a different way between now and January when we come back with the final proposals.
Thank you. That's everything on that. So we'll go on to the engagement plan, engagement document. Leader, want to introduce or
It's just there for your information. It will go to cabinet in a fortnight's time. And Phil Hunter is working on the final version, which will be around. Well, I'll let you explain.
Okay. Yeah, Bill, for me, Chair. Thank you. So what you have before you, the draft policy engagement document, the aim of that document is to provide anyone who wants to participate in the budget engagement with a deeper background to the budget. So it sets out the background to the council's finances, the options open to the council to set a balanced budget, and also the summary of the service proposals, as you can see, broken down by directorate. As the leader says, this will sit alongside a much shorter questionnaire. So I can assure you, you won't have to read through this document to fill in the much shorter questionnaire if you don't want to. But if you do, that deeper, more detailed information is there for those who want it. We're planning to launch this document with that shorter questionnaire after council meets in December, on the 12th of December, after cabinet meets, subject to cabinet agreeing to us to launch that. We will encourage participation in that survey using our social media and other communication channels, and of course, hopefully members around the table and beyond will encourage residents and other partners to participate in the engagement. I should say, and the leaders touched on this, we're not just engaging through a survey. As in previous years, the leader will attend meetings of LACT in January to present his budget proposals and to invite comment and feedback on those. The leaders touched on your scrutiny meeting in January. I would highlight that the leaders also planning to do, as in previous years, a live question and answer session with residents who can engage with him directly if they want to. We encourage as many residents and partners as possible to take that opportunity. Members will be aware that we've already had 2 policy conferences. So essentially the budget engagement started in July of this year with the first policy conference on the budget. We had a second one in September. So we're already ahead of the game in that sense. To pick up on Councillor Robinson's point, yes, we will meet representative groups from business, as in previous years, the CBI, Federation of Small Businesses, and also the local chamber to invite their comments. But just to pick up on your point, Councillor Robinson, with the FSB, we'll use that as an opportunity for them to share the link to our survey to their membership and try and drive up participation from small businesses in the budget consultation. And I think that's all I wanted to say.
Paul, you had your question, do you want to?
Oh, God. I forgot. Sorry, yeah. What I wanted to know was whether the consultations involve measuring whether we have value for money. So if we have spent some X million somewhere, and then does it bring value for money so that we can direct the savings and etc. based on that information. So that's the question I wanted to ask, basically.
You want to say that?
Yes, happy to through you, Chair. So from memory, previous surveys have included questions on residents and partners' views on capital investment and revenue spend, and their views on what are the priorities around that. But just to respond to your point specifically, I think we can look at those questions to see how we can find out if people think they're getting value for money for those services and investments. So we will look at that as part of the putting together.
Thank you very much, because that is one of our visions, if I may recall. Our county council vision is to deliver value for money. So the consultation should involve some kind of a measure, particularly when the leader promised that we will be talking to the town council and parish council. They are the best sources of information to feed into that aspect of it. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
So may I, do you mind just answer that quick point? We've got a meeting with the parish and town councils fairly soon, I think. And we'll talk about the budget there. We also had some really good sessions with the parish and town council at the parish and town council conference, where we started to talk about what are the key priorities. And so far as small business is concerned, last year the Federation of Small Business said to us, will we try and up our game on advice to small business? And that's exactly what we've done. So we've just set up our small business advice service. David, are you able to talk about that or not really? Just the new business advice service that we've got running now, delivered by officers within Advance, and looking at small business.
See, that was not in my bag, Glenn.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we've got a brand new service that's up and running, and I went to the launch of it just a couple of weeks ago, and I think it'll be very valuable in terms of dealing with small business and helping them explore new ways of growing.
I think this is an excellent document, excellent engagement. My only criticism was that was long-winded. It was really comprehensive look at the thing, which great for those people that want to do it. Very happy you're doing it. It's short, it's a short, snappy one. I haven't seen the questions, of course, or the answers on that, so I can't comment on that. The small business point I would make, and I used to represent, I used to work for them in a 90% of small businesses in the county won't be part of affiliation. That's the problem we've got. It's reaching those people. And I'll make the point again that helping those small businesses expand and reach the potential, unemployment wouldn't be a thing in Northumberland. It's as simple as that. We've got that many of them. If they just took one apprentice on, there would be jobs for all the kids. Wow.
Well, it may be something I might suggest you want to look at in maybe the new year.
Right. Okay. Well, so that as the chairman have got questions. Is there a significant difference in the questions? Previous years? On the survey?
Yeah. There'll be some modifications, and we will, of course, take account of some of the views that have been expressed, all of the views that have been expressed around this table, and how we put those final questions together. I think they'll be broadly similar, but as ever, we look to tweak and modify based on the feedback that we get in previous years.
May I ask if it's a possibility that you can put some of these surveys perhaps in libraries and community centres? The reason being because some of our elderly people aren't on the internet, etc., and are not savvy, and possibly people that's who like to participate and they've got every right to do so. So it's just if they could be put in those places where so they're not excluded. Thank you. Would mind?
Yes.
Thank you.
Copies and less President, sir. Yes, we will do that. Yes, is the short answer to that. And I think members are aware that we are also currently out on a much more comprehensive resident survey, which will be report the results on at some point in the new year. So hopefully we'll get a wealth of information from residents on that, and that is something that's posted to households, not all to households because it's a sample, but it is posted to households so that people who don't like to do things on computers can respond. But in answer to your original question, yes, we can put hard copies in places.
Thank you very much. Not London, so we'll save the best to last. So best, here we are. Leader.
Are you finished with me?
Well, do you want to introduce best or not?
I can happily stay if you want me to.
Well,
But it go quarter past 11.
If you don't want to do best after the time.
No, I'd love to stay. Only till 10 past.
Right, Eva, Glenn, do you want to say a few words about best or?
Yes, I would, sorry. I just have to say that over the years, we've tried different forms of looking at ourselves. I suppose you could describe that. It's also described as transformation. And over the years, there have been many attempts, and before Jan came along, and some of you will remember those that go back as long as I do. And ultimately, they've never really worked because you need to have a kind of a detached look and at how service like well, any service within the county council is being delivered, and how it might be delivered better and more efficiently, because this is all around the point about value for money. So we all need to be able to say, I am absolutely certain that the way we're delivering our services is the most efficient. It is the best way we can do it. And if we can't say that, then we do need to look at ourselves, as we've said. So there is this programme that's underway at the moment, which Jan will describe to you. I just really have to make it quite clear that we are totally behind this piece of work, and we are taking people with us on it. We're not making this an adversarial. It's difficult for people to follow. That would never work anyway if you're trying to do that. And so it's absolutely the priority, one of the key priorities, to make sure that we do deliver our services not only really well, but in the best and most cost-effective way. And so Jan will tell you more.
Thank you, Nita. Jan?
Yes, thank you. So so the report that you have in front of you gives a snapshot of where we currently are. Since the strategic business case was approved in January, we've been mobilising the team. We have been through a procurement process to appoint a strategic delivery partner, and Deloitte were appointed at the end of October, and are coming to the end of their initial mobilisation phase now. So we have pretty much a fully resourced team, and we are ready now to start accelerating the delivery of the various components of BEST. So you have details in the report about what we've already delivered, because where we've been able to get on with things, we have. Huge amount of work, thinking and planning that has gone into each of the work streams. And now it's all about delivery. So one of the next things that we will be doing with Deloitte is to agree what the areas are that we want to focus on over the next 12 months, and also to go back and to revalidate all of the assumptions in the strategic business case, because clearly that strategic business case needs to be now developed into, you know, more detailed proposals, and we need to go back around the loop in terms of confirming not just the financial benefits, so the efficiencies and the savings that we're going to deliver, but also, you know, the wider benefits. So benefits for our residents, benefits for staff, etc., social value, climate change impact, all of those things, and the contribution to reducing inequality. So we'll be looking at all of the best proposals through those different lenses, and agreeing the detail the detailed proposals. That's the work which we're currently engaged in. So that's the overview. You'll see that the report also picks up the progress that we've made in implementing the outstanding actions from the CALA review and the challenge board, because those actions have now been absorbed into BEST, and sort of the priorities for the next 6 months. There was a suggestion that I made at the last meeting that, as well as receiving an overview of where we are with the programme at this meeting, that future meetings you might want to do some deep dives into each of the work streams so that you can understand in a bit more depth all of the work that's happening around, for example, best services to customers, how we're making best use of technology, a lot of the work that Simon is leading as the SRO for the best use of talent and opportunities workstream around workforce, leadership, culture and behaviour, etc. And Alison and Neil leading on best use of resources, which is about how we organise ourselves in the back office to enable, you know, those sort of back office efficiencies, and Jill around commissioning and procurement related efficiencies, and then finally Audrey leading on best value, and that includes a lot of the work that we're doing around value for money assessments, service planning, performance and accountability, etc. So each of those work streams has a particular focus, led by a different member of the executive management team, and if you wanted to do some deep dives into each of those, then that's something that we'd be very happy to facilitate. So, Chair, I'll stop there in terms of the introduction and hand back to you.
John? Right, Councillor Breen, John?
Thanks, Chair. As you know, I was going to ask for this before I saw it on the agenda. It's really more the deep dive and the pricing structure and possibly procurement. You're obviously looking at a very high level. I mean, I know 3 or 4 instances this year where NCC have been asked to quote for contracts, and they were way above private industry. Now, I'm not suggesting that we subsidise those because that's unfair competition. But what I wanted to ask this committee to look at is how we price up jobs. The jobs I'm talking about, contract, were only possibly 15,000. But if you multiply that across by every councillor in the council, I know Malcolm's mentioned it a few times about small member schemes. Yeah. The council are always overpriced compared to private industry. We obviously have to look at procurement and obviously value for money, but we also have to be a business and we have to go out and get business. I say I don't want it to be unfair by subsidising it with the ratepayers' money to make it unfair competition, but we have to be looking at our pricing structure. Now, I have asked a couple of officers on this, and there will be an explanation, a very simple explanation, but I don't know it. I don't think Malcolm probably knows it, or many other councillors know it, how we price up jobs. And I think we have to be really looking at that. Now, I know you look into the high-end structure, but let's get down to the basics and deep dive on how we price. We have the great guys working here. We have the back office staff. But why we're charging twice as much as a private company? There has to be a reason behind that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair.
So I think I don't think there's any obviously answer now, but I think if we could put that as a deep dive item, just on how that works.
Can I just be clear? You talked about how we price jobs. Are you talking about where we are providing services or delivering projects in return for a fee? Yes. Or are you okay, so you're not talking about whether we're getting best value when we're going to the market and asking them to tender for
For example,
projects.
road closures, the diversions, obviously you have the legals, which are set price.
Okay,
So say like road closures,
Okay.
diversions. You can get
All right.
Yeah, and
that's
also,
helpful. Thank
yeah,
you.
and also I think, just remember small schemes, you want a bit of path being laid, and we're told it's 15 grand, where we know damn well we can get it for
Yeah.
2 grand from the local builder.
Yeah, exactly. Them things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could do you mind just to add to what John said? I think it's a really important point, and we do talk about procurement, don't we, quite a lot when we meet. It's something that's one of those fundamental things that we need to make sure that we're doing the best we can in terms of value for money. And another one, if I may, is around estates and the buildings that we have and how they're looked up. So all of that stuff is incredibly important to how we run our business, because it is a business, you're quite right. And that's what this programme is going to do.
Thank you. Could I just, John, if you might go to me, could I just add as well onto the fact that could we do the work joined up? Because if there's a little bit work needs to be done on that particular road closure at the time, and maybe it's cutting bushes back, and there's potholes or there's yellow lines may need like refreshed, etc. Could we just not do it instead of having to go and do different works streams of that and costing X amount of money, instead of we could just do one road closure at a cost and get everything done? That I know it comes at a cost, but it might be value for money in the long run.
Exactly.
Yeah, sort of joined up element of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Focus my questions first. Dan, just so we're sure, and I did ask you about this last year. This is the second year of the funding for this programme, isn't it?
Yes, so in the MTFP, we agreed £3 million investment for 3 years. So last year was the first year of that investment. This is year 2. Next year will be year 3. So any funding, so that those are contributions to the transformation reserve, and when we draw down the funding from the reserve as and when it's needed. So in other words, although the funding is provided over 3 years, Malcolm, we're not necessarily going to spend all of that, each year.
No, I need to be on top, because last year I thought it was the first, but never mind, this is the second. Right, fine, great. My next question is probably for Kelly. And it's just an observation when we're talking about posts not being filled and potential redundancies that we don't want to happen. Then, there's obviously a case to be made for retraining under the BEST programme, and that's hopefully what we want to do.
Yeah, so there's as Jan said earlier on, there's a few things that we do in it. If we know that there's a service that is subject to change, we're looking for potential of not putting a fixed term post, like a long term post. Now we're looking at fixed term posts instead, because we don't want to put anyone in any kind of position where we're doing. But as you say, one of the biggest parts of the programme is around skills and knowledge transfer and upskilling our staff. That is a crucial part. One of the key things that we've done just recently which is in the papers, the Data Academy. So we look in the future is about evidence-based and using data, and how that is something that we need to do across the organisation. So we've launched an apprenticeship scheme under Data Academy, upskilling our staff so that they can fill those posts. So yes, that is a critical part of where we can actually upskill and train people and move people around.
Excellent, excellent. My last question, but probably most important. When we had the BEST presentation, I asked about the savings, the projected savings, and we were told it was annual saving figures, 17 to 38. I questioned it. I got the answer, yes, it was annual. I then told the leader that was a hell of a trick, because you were actually going to save the 20 million you'd settled on year after year after year. Yes, I read it in here that it's projected savings across the life of the BEST programme.
Okay, so if I can clarify, these are recurrent savings, but we won't get there all in one go. So we will deliver some recurrent savings in the first year. We'll deliver some more recurrent savings in year 2 and 3 and 4, and it will build up to a recurrent saving of between 17 and 35 million is what the strategic business case said. So yes, we're looking to take this cost permanently out of our cost base.
Yeah,
but we won't do it all in one jump.
yes,
Malcolm.
that's fine, Jan, but it will be an annual saving,
It will.
right? Because that's going to be important when we look at the budget deficit figures,
Indeed.
because that could wipe that out.
Yes. And so you will see in the budget report that there is a line that sets out what the best efficiencies will be. Some of those will be of a one-off nature, but the bulk will be recurrent savings.
Yeah.
And the challenge for us, and this is what we're currently looking at with Deloitte, is whether what we need to do in order to first of all, hit the high end of the projected recurrent savings from the strategic business case. And secondly, what we can do to accelerate the delivery of those savings. And you know, that's going to be really critical because we do still have a gap for 25-6, but we have an even bigger gap for 26-7. So, you know, we're doing that work at the moment, and it's all about understanding, you know, how fast and how far we can go.
Excellent.
Do you mind, Mr. Chairman, if I could just point out in the report that you've got, it does show the best savings. And they are recurrent. In other words, they happen again and again and again. So it's not just for 1 year. So the answer is that clear though now?
Yeah, it's
okay.
I mean, you know, you're restructuring the whole of the county council into a sleek business model. Basically, that's what you're doing, which is what residents probably expect us to do.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks so much. Any other items you want to no? Okay, thank you very much. So that's we've got another wanted to come back. Next item is the work programme. Just information there.
Just for information, but I did pick up the point about the carbon speaker factories going on the agenda.
And even if the report's one line, we want to.
And if it has to go on pink.
And that's one big paper to on papers. Ideally not, but if it has to.
And also obviously think that the request for the especially bring that to committee. And also we've learned today that you will have the all members truly member budgets report to you on the 20th.
Yeah, we'll got things on the agenda.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah. Right. Any other business? No. Right. Thank you very much. I'll leave it up to meeting. Thank you. Close the meeting now.